David Smith here with one more flipped classroom math lesson. 3 tips. First, you can adjust the playback speed faster or slower as you desire. Second, you can pause the video at any point to catch up with your notes or jot down some questions. Third, you can turn on the captions and read my words on the screen. Today's topic, compound angle formulae. And so compound just means we're putting 2 angles together in a formula in an interesting way. So the cosine of angle A plus angle B, so if one was 30, one was 60, we're asking for a cosine of 90. Cosine of angle A plus B is going to be the same as the cosine of A times the cosine of B minus the sine of A times the sine of B. Okay? So kind of complicated, but straightforward. Okay? So we have 3 more. You have the cosine of angle A minus B, which is cosine A times cosine B plus sine A sine B, like that. We also have the sine of A plus B, like the cosine of A plus B. Here's a sine of A plus B, but this is a little different. Notice how with the cosine formula, you have our cos A, cos B here with the sine A sine B there. But when we do sine of 2 angles added together, now it's sine A times cosine B plus cosine A times sine B. Okay, so we're switching up the sine and the cosine function in that. Same thing here with the sine of A minus B. It's going to be sine A times cosine B minus cosine A times sine B. Okay, let's do an example. I recopied the 4 rules here. A little smaller, but they're here so we can refer to them as we go. Okay, so here's the problem. Cosine alpha, that's the Greek letter alpha, standing for some value, some angle measure, plus 90. So how are we going to evaluate this and simplify it? So the first thing I'm going to do is take a look at which one of these 4 rules applies. Cosine, it's one of the first 2, and it's A plus B. I have alpha plus 90. So now I'm going to write it out. I'm going to substitute in my values here in this expression over there and see what we can do. Okay, so this becomes cosine alpha times cosine 90 minus sine alpha times the sine of 90. And you might be seeing where this is going. We don't know what alpha is, but we're going to simplify this anyway. What's the cosine of 90? Cosine of 90 is 0. That's the x-coordinate when you've rotated all the way up the unit circle to the top. So this is 0. So this becomes cosine alpha times 0 minus, we don't know what sine alpha is yet, so we'll just bring that down. Now the sine of 90, what's that? That's 1. So sine alpha times 1. Okay? So cosine of alpha, doesn't matter what alpha is. If we're multiplying it, sorry guys, I wrote theta there. I meant 0, okay? So cosine alpha times 0 is going to be 0. So it's going to be 0 minus sine alpha, which is just negative sine alpha. So that's simplified down quite a bit. Okay, let's try another one. Cosine of 270 plus some theta. So what we're going to do is identify the correct rule from the 4, write it out, and simplify. So we have a cosine of 2 angles being added. Again, we're on that first rule. So this is going to be cosine 270 times sine theta, which we don't know yet, minus the sine of 270 times the sine of theta. Okay, so let's take a peek. Cosine of 270. Cosine is x-coordinate. 270 is 3/4 of the way around the unit circle. So up to 90, down to 180, up to 90, down to 180, all the way around to 270. So the x value at cosine of 270 is 0. So this is going to be 0 times sine theta. So we know what's going to happen there. minus, now sine of 270. Again, we're all the way around the unit circle to there. So the sine of 270 is -1. So this is going to be minus -1 times sine theta. Now this term, 0 times sine theta, doesn't matter what sine theta is, it's going to be 0. And so this is negative sine theta, but we have another negative, so this becomes sine theta. Okay, let's do another example. Check this out. Sine of 180 minus a. So sine means we're using one of these two. The negative means we're using this last one. So this is the template we need to use for our substitution. So let's do that. So this is going to be sine 180 times cosine of letter A. Now this is what's going to get confusing about this, is that they're using an A here, but it is in the B position. So you've got to keep track when you do your substitutions. So this is going to be minus, now it's going to be the cosine of the first thing. So cosine 180, that's the first thing, times the sine of the second thing. So times the sine of A. So that's going to be our substitution step. Now we can start taking a look. We're dealing with 180 degrees on the unit circle. So that's starting here, going all the way around to there. So at this position, the x-coordinate is -1 and the y-coordinate is 0. So sine of 180, that's the y-coordinate. This becomes 0 times cosine A minus, and the cosine of 180, again, all the way around to here, cosine x-coordinate is going to be -1 right there. So this becomes -1 times sine A. Okay? Now this goes to 0. That's equals, This goes to 0. Now -1 times sine A is negative sine A. Change the sign one more time. So that's 0 plus sine A, which is just sine A. One last example. Check this one out. Cosine of alpha minus pi over 2. So first step, figure out which rule we've got. We've got cosine and we're subtracting. So that's the second rule here on our list. Second step, do our substitution. Don't try to go any more steps. Just do your substitution as one step. So this is going to be those four things out there. So this is going to be cosine of alpha times cosine of pi over 2 plus sine alpha times the sine of pi over 2. Okay, so all I did is I substituted, didn't do any fancy thinking there. Now we can start evaluating. Cosine alpha, we don't really know what that is, but pi over 2, we know that's 90 degrees. Cosine at 90 is right up there, cosine x-coordinate. Cosine 90 is 0. So this is cosine alpha times 0. We know that's going to go to 0. Now we have sine alpha here, and we need to know the sine of pi over 2. So what's the sine of 90? Again, we've rotated up to the top of the unit circle. The y-coordinate there, which is sine, is 1. So that's sine alpha times 1. So, check this out. That becomes 0. Sine alpha times 1 is just sine alpha. Now that you've watched the video, take a moment to jot down some notes, some questions, or a quick summary of the content. You can also re-watch the portions of the video that were a little bit challenging. If you enjoyed the video, please click like, and if you'd like to help me grow my YouTube channel, please click subscribe.